but his hand is stretched out still. For wickedness burneth as a fire, it shall devour the briars and thorns, and shall kindle in the thickets of the forest, and they shall mount up like the lifting up of smoke. Through the wrath of the Lord of hosts is the land darkened, and the people shall be as the fuel of the fire. No man shall spare his brother.
Hello, good day. Welcome to Lima Line Bible Studies. So we're a little late, but we had to go take care of a little frozen well. Let's get right into chapter 13 here. We can chit chat later. Job continues speaking. We're not going to read the whole thing again. But whatever. I mean, we're not going back. Lo, mine eye hath seen all this. Mine ear hath heard and understood it. What ye know, the same do I know also. I am not inferior to you. Surely I would speak to the Almighty, and I desire to reason with God. But ye are forgers of lies. Ye are all physicians of no value. Oh, that ye would altogether hold your peace, and it should be your wisdom. Hear now my reasoning, and hearken to the pleadings of my lips. Will ye speak wickedly for God, and talk deceitfully for him? Will ye accept his person? Will ye contend for God? Is it good that he should search you out? Or as one man mocketh another, do ye so mock him? He will surely reprove you, if ye do secretly accept persons. Shall not his excellency make you afraid, and his dread fall upon you? Your remembrances are like unto ashes, your bodies to bodies of clay. Hold your peace, let me alone, that I may speak, and let come on me what will. Wherefore do I take my flesh in my teeth, and put my life in mine hand? Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. But I will maintain mine own ways before him. He also shall be my salvation. For an hypocrite shall not come before him. Hear diligently my speech, and my declaration with your ears. Behold now, I have ordered my cause. I know that I shall be justified. Who is he that will plead with me? For now, if I hold my tongue, I shall give up the ghost. Only do not two things unto me. Then will I not hide myself from thee. Withdraw thine hand far from me, and let not thy dread make me afraid. Then call thou, and I will answer, or let me speak, and answer thou me. How many are mine iniquities and sins? Make me to know my transgression and my sin. Wherefore hidest thou thy face, and holdest me for thine enemy? Wilt thou break a leaf driven to and fro, and wilt thou pursue the dry stubble? For thou writest bitter things against me, and makest me to possess the iniquities of my youth. Thou puttest my feet also in the stocks, and lookest narrowly unto all my paths. Thou settest a print upon the heels of my feet, and he, as a rotten thing, consumeth, as a garment that is moth-eaten. Man that is born of woman is a few days, and full of trouble. He cometh forth like a flower, and is cut down. He fleeth also as a shadow, and continueth not. And dost thou open thine eyes upon such an one, and bringest me into judgment with thee? Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? Not me. I'm sorry, not one. I don't know why I said not me. I didn't actually read that. So Seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bonds, that he cannot pass. Turn from him, that he may rest, till he shall accomplish as an hireling his day. For there is hope of a tree, if it be cut down, that it will sprout again, and that the tender branch thereof will not cease. Though the root thereof wax old in the earth, and the stock thereof die in the ground, yet through the scent of water will it bud, and bring forth boughs like a plant. But man dieth and wasteth away. Yea, man giveth up the ghost, and where is he? As the waters fall from... fail. I see now it says dot there. That would be really nice. As the waters fail from the sea, and the flood decayeth and drieth up, so man lieth down and riseth not, till heavens be no more, till the heavens be no more. They shall not awake, nor be raised from their sleep. Oh, that thou wouldest hide me in the grave, that thou wouldest keep me secret until thy wrath be past, that thou wouldest appoint me a set time, and remember me. If a man die, shall he live again? All the days of my appointed time will I wait till my change come. Thou shalt call, and I will answer thee. Thou wilt have a desire to the work of thine hands. For now thou numberest my steps. Dost thou not watch over my sin? My transgression is sealed up in a bag, and thou sewest up mine iniquity. And surely the mountain falling cometh to naught, and the rock is removed out of his place. The waters wear the stones. Thou washest away the things which grow out of the dust of the earth, and thou destroyest the hope of man. Thou prevailest forever against him, and he passeth. Thou changest his countenance, and sendest him away. His sons come to honor, and he knoweth it not. They are brought low, but he perceiveth it not of them. But his flesh upon him shall have pain, and his soul within him shall mourn. And while I'd like to, there's something to be said for just a straight reading of the whole thing, but the back and forth, and there's and actually a straight reading. In some ways, I don't know. I don't know how well I'd absorb it. I do like going back each day and rereading some of the passages, and I like that overlap, because every time it reveals a little more. Because there's things in here that are kind of difficult. Not a ton of them. I think most of it's pretty straightforward. Let's look at it. I really like this, what Job's talking about. And like I said, I think a lot of people don't like it because he's sort of he's saying things and pointing out things that are true, but people don't like to talk about it. Like I said, people like to present Christ as more loving than he is. And that's a weird argument to have to talk about. Like, God doesn't love, he loves everybody a ton, a whole bunch. It's like, well, then how do it's like, not that much. God so loved the world. Yeah, that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever would believe on him would not perish. That's a very limited love. It's limited to those who believe. It's not a universal thing. And also the fairness of God is not limited to your time on earth. And that's the thing that Job is saying, is like, I even if it's unfair, I'm not going to, what he's saying is God does this and he has the right to do this. And I am not complaining against him, but I'd like to know why he's so against me. And I really would like to have my questions answered, surely. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with asking questions and pointing things out. That's how we learn. Suffer the little children to come unto me. Little children often ask foolish, simple questions that we adults, we don't want to hear those questions. Not that was precisely what Jesus was talking about, but Like I said, right here is a great point about respecting persons. What is our vernacular for respecting persons? Or what would be one sort of synonym? If you were looking up synonyms in the thesaurus to hypocrisy, and it was a urban version of that, you might see ass kissing. I'm just going to say it, all right? Right? And what I'm saying is that's sort of the way they are being towards God. They are trying to, oh, God, you're so wonderful. You would never do this. You would never do something like that. But they're not talking the right things about God and what really happens in the world. Because sometimes bad things happen to good people. And God knows about it. God allows it. And it's not a punishment. It's not his wrath. You are never subject to God's wrath as a believer. Not just in the end times. Ever. You are subject to his correction, potentially. His chastisement, potentially. This isn't chastisement for Job. He's not even being chastened. Sometimes we suffer because we are part and parcel of God's glory. And that suffering is not to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed. And for some people that sounds like pie in the sky. But Job has a lot of pie on earth too. And that's why he's saying, hey, I came in naked. I go ahead. When you're a blessed man and you understand God even a bit, it gives you a certain humility. It ought to understand where you stand in comparison to God and what is expected of you as you understand that. And you go about it, and sometimes, life isn't fair. Quote unquote, life isn't fair. But God is in charge of life, ultimately, and that's one of Job's assertions, is that this is God's doing. Of course it's God's doing, and they're not disputing that. But they're saying, well, it can only have happened because you've done something to deserve this. What have you done? Like I said, where have you got kids locked up in your basement or something, Job? Something awful. Right? It should be, because it makes a certain kind of sense. I'm not saying there isn't an argument to be had there. They're making the argument. And like I said, it's putting a rose-colored glow on God. And in not getting the full picture of who God is. He kills and he makes alive. That first part is very important. He wounds and he heals. He isn't just a healer, he is a wounder. Christ is not just, we saw him meek and lowly and coming on an ass, but we also know that the scriptures say he will come to make war against those who make war on all that is true and right. And who have done, and upon whom will be on whose hands the blood of saints will be. It's not like they will not have filled their cup to the full. But, in righteousness he doth judge and make war, not me. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God, spiritual. We work through him. We submit to his way of doing things. We're not here to play Jesus on the white horse and whip out the sword and start decapitating people. At least we say we're not, even though we do plenty of that. We certainly help people get blown to pieces. There's lots of parts of bodies that we certainly are, very helpful in getting separated from other parts with all of our wonderful fire from the sky and under the ground. Just counseling them to war. So, he said, repeats this phrase about, I'm not inferior. I know the things you know. I know what you're saying about God and justice and all that. Because that's true. God does punish the wicked. The wages of sin is death. Every man will be rewarded according to his works. And then, with there being an exception, though, of course, that the mercy of God, that through faith in Jesus Christ, we have his mercy. We go to a different throne. We go to the throne of grace. We approach that now. We don't wait till Judgment Day. So our sins are taken care of. Don't be careless of that. Shall we sin the more that grace may abound? Look how gracious Jesus is. Look at all the stuff I get away with because I'm a Christian. Don't mock God. Don't mock God. And like I said, and kissing God's behind, so to speak, trying to be a fawning sycophant. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you must have done something. Just accusing the innocent in the name of God. You know what I mean? That's not, and people do that. When people talk about guys all the time on the news and stuff, I get disgusted. I can't listen to a lot of conservatives because it's like they have such blinders on. Just such blinders. They don't know. Because they throw it all into Islam. There's Christians. It's honestly about the Arabs that live there. As far as I can tell, Arab ain't no Amalek. Those are supposed to be the descendants of Ishmael, one of Abraham's children. That's why they have the Abraham Accords, because they're all pretty much, and honestly, everybody in that region probably is related to Abraham by now, right? I mean, goodness, he had so many children, and they got spread all over the place. I'm sure their DNA comes up everywhere. I mean, not everywhere strongly, but bits and pieces. What is it all about? Is it about DNA and particular mountains, or is it about right and wrong? And and I like the way Job's story is kind of abstracted. There's no temples, no nothing. It's just a man and God, a man whose life is being torn apart for no good reason. For no good reason. I would speak to. I want to talk to the Almighty. Again, I desire to reason with God. Now, not like some of these atheists will talk about how they tell God what's what. No, he just wants to like he says, tell me my sins and what it is and explain to me if does this have something to do with my sin? Because like he says, he doesn't think so. I mean, I don't know if that's exactly the attitude, but let's keep reading. I would desire to reason with God. You're forgers of lies. I think that means not in the sense of, because I thought of it in the sense of forgery, but I think more in the sense of a iron forge, but I guess I should check that. I'm going to quickly, forgers of lies. To smear plaster over, stick, or glue. Oh, look at that error. That's just kind of interesting. Stick or glue. That's not always, that's the quick definition when you hover. It's not always the same, but here it is the same. Okay. To attach, fabricate, or falsely attribute. So it is forgery. So it's almost like a double negative. Like forgers of lies. And that's also interesting. Notice we've stumbled on something here on the right-hand side. That the word forger here in 13:4 is the same word as translated sewest up. As in sewest up my iniquity. I know it's kind of at the edge of the screen. Let me bring it in a little here. Oh, I got to do it more. The more I will do it. There we go. Yeah, that's all on screen. It's kind of at the edge there, but that's all there is to it. They're 14:17 and 13:4. They're on the Englishman's Concordance. I have a paper version of that. I used to, one of my favorite tools, because that takes you through it shows you all the Hebrew words instead of an English concordance where you look up the word like forger and you get all the times forger is and then what word it is, which is a useful thing. But this gives you the sort of the inverse of that, where it's like, it gives you, when you're looking at a Hebrew word, all the versions, all the ways it's used in the Bible, all the different places, and then you can see if it's translated differently. And here in Psalm 119, the proud have forged a lie against me. That's interesting. And because it means, I always thought of it in the sense of to create like a smith. but it means in the sense of forgery. And forgery of lies, like I said, it's almost like a double negative or you're doubling down on it. And that usually means for great emphasis. Those kind of linguistic things in whatever language you're talking about, a lot of times that's a very common way to express things. So that's very interesting. Now, sewest up, which is interesting because sewest up as forgery, you know what I mean? So there must be connection with the idea of, like it says, it means to fabricate, attach, or that, but then it's used in this other way. And I wonder if that's some sort of play on words by Job here in what he's saying, is because he's saying, you are forgers of lies, and God takes all my iniquity and forges it or whatever. Because I suppose the idea of like to create, to fabricate, or maybe those words are related, like to forge, maybe a forge actually is the same kind of root concept. I haven't explored that in English. Anyways, I like the idea of fabricate, because fabricate is more of a neutral term, and that way in English it's easier to see how using the same word suddenly has two meanings. You are fabricators of lies. You fabricate my iniquity. Is that a good way to say it? To stick on as a patch. To impute falsely. Yeah, so I like those two. The meaning there's an interesting way to think of it both ways. I was hoping it would seem more clear to me, but whatever. We don't have to understand the nuances of the Hebrew language to be able to understand what Job is saying. All right, let's move along. Physicians of no value, you're worthless doctors. They had that problem back then too, when doctors became of no value. And when do they become of no value? When they start kissing the rear end of power and not being faithful to what they became doctors for, really. And same thing here. It's more that's my take on it. Obviously, I don't know if that's what Job was thinking, but in the sense that they're like, if you're come to heal, you're doing no good. Because in the old days, even without certification, even with certification, we still sometimes have bad doctors and fake doctors. Hopefully, they're not getting through the certification process as good as doctors should. But back when there wasn't, it was very common to have quack doctors isn't the right word, because that's actually very specific. But doctors who didn't really do anything, but they used that as a way of basically making a living. Here, give them some herbs, mix it with some alcohol or something. Worthless physicians. Although you would hold your peace, it would be wise for you to just sit there quietly. That would make you look wise. Sometimes it is wisdom to keep silence. There's not always time for lots of words. That's a wisdom that has been evasive for me at times. I confess, making words is one of those things that I'm not shy about or hesitant. But it is good to be slow to speak, especially in certain contexts. That's one thing when you're talking, here I am, I'm supposed to be explaining things to you. But, in other contexts, people who know me know I'm not a big blabbermouth who's running up there to talk all the time. In fact, over and over throughout my life, I've had reinforced to me the wisdom of being slow to speak, especially in sensitive situations, of holding your peace. In fact, every time I was silent, I think back on situations where I messed up by opening my mouth, and I compare them to similar situations where I didn't open my mouth, and I was like, wow, it worked out a lot better. But then again, there's a time to keep silence, and there is a time to speak, okay? And they think it's the time to speak, right? But they're wrong, and Job is right. But you understand, there's a time for every purpose under heaven. Sometimes it's a good time to keep quiet. And when you've got the wrong idea in your head, problem is often when we have the wrong idea, we don't know. We can't see it. Will you speak wickedly? Hear my reasoning, because we're saying you speak wickedly for God and talk deceitfully for Him. That's what he's saying. This is what you're doing. You're speaking for God, saying that I would never do such a thing to anyone. God would never do that. but you know what I mean? You see how that like in the end, it doesn't do anything for God if he would do that. Then you are not, you know what I mean? It's like, you're not representing me properly. To me, that's always been the thing, is like, I read the Bible, I experience reality, and I think the Bible has a very good reflection of reality in the nature of God as it presents it to us, especially when you look at the whole picture with a heavy emphasis on the New Testament and the teachings of Jesus, of course, and also him being like the key of understanding, you know, the key of David, even where, you know, I carry my Christianity all the way back into the Old Testament. I take Jesus' attitude towards the Old Testament, which is, you know, he is he's almost reverential with the prophets, and in Moses he's somewhat critical. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, because he's like, as far as like that the law is there for purposes not necessarily divine, that sometimes the law is there for the hardness of men's hearts. Just like I put the same explanation as divorce, slavery. There were laws concerning those things. And Jesus was also very, he asserted his own lordship over the law. And he was Lord of the Sabbath. Just as any true king, well, not true king, but kings often take on powers that are akin to God's powers, you know, the power over life and death and stuff. God genuinely has a right to take that power to himself. That's the difference. He is the righteous judge. And also the righteous ruler. Even when, because it's like I said, he's not our peer. He's not some man who's just had a crown stuck on his head. The crown is innate, because he is God. Will you accept his person? Will you contend for God? You know, like I said, the accepting of God's person. The only place in the Bible that ever takes this perspective. But I like we know that people say you can't learn anything from Job. I don't know what you're talking about. I bring my Christianity, I bring my understanding of the prophets, all that to Job. It's like we could do the Apocrypha and stuff like that. Maybe we will someday. When I've exhausted the books of the Bible that I think are very significant, then I would turn to the books outside the Bible, perhaps. Especially if there was some, people wrote that there was interest. There has been, people have indicated interest. One or two people have asked me, would you cover do you cover the Apocrypha? Not would you. So, like I said, respect of persons is when, someone is like great or powerful or rich. Someone, they walk into the church with their very wealthy thing and have the front seat here, sir. And, giving deferential treatment to people who are wealthier. This is part of our society, and it's in the Bible, it's considered a great evil among men to respect persons. The funny thing is, this respecting of persons, I think this respecting person, this is exactly what Norman Geisler does in the Evangelical Encyclopedia of Theology or whatever. I forget what it's called. He wrote an article on hell, and he is such an apologist for it that I'm like, wow, the things he wrote, I'm like, it's like they will be willing to excuse God anything. You know what I mean? Like, and deny that there's anything unjust going on, because God doesn't do unjust things, but they'll blame you, or like here. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is this: it's the whole idea that sins committed in this world are sins against an infinite God, and that therefore they deserve infinite punishment. All that reasoning is just to get to that eternal torment that they love so much but never want to talk about to the public. They want to defend it because they think it's traditional. Okay, it's also a Rorschach test to me, and I do think it's like it is accepting the person of God. You worship a God that tortures people forever? I wouldn't. I don't know. I'm like, you think that pleases him? Oh, it's written in the book. There's a lot of things written in the book. Are you sure you read it right? Like Satan said, Throw yourself off the temple, for it is written. For it is written. Especially something so awful when you attribute it to the Lord and say, oh, it's righteous. He this is what he does. They deserve it. That's the point I would say. That it's not that he's unrighteous, or it's not an argument about the righteousness of God. It's an argument about how guilty they are, and that, just a life lived, a mundane life. Some poor guy just goes to work, lives a brief life of ignorance and mundacity, and his little mundane sins that he commits every day. For that, and for his life, now it's an infinite time in the torture chamber. Yes, sir. Okay. And it's just to defend their own doctrine ultimately, and that's the thing. But it's like they respect his person. Oh, whatever you say, go. It's like, because he's the big and powerful one. Shall not his excellency make you afraid? I know how I want to interpret that, because I feel like he is most excellent. He does not appreciate even that. He likes sincere worship, not worship that comes from this sycophancy. I think that would be to be a sycophant. A sycophant is someone who's, it's like a person who respects persons, but they like, oh yes, like when a lot of the people in the media are sycophants and that's it's not PSY, it's SYCOPHANT, sycophant. It's when someone is just knee-jerk agreeing with some powerful person or group. I mean, you can direct it at a individual, and usually it's directed as an individual. That's how that word is usually used. But you could use it even like if someone was just slavishly devoted to a particular denomination, that could be seen as a kind of that sort of thing. And because of the structural power and the powerful people within who can give you promotions, and that sycophancy comes about a lot in bureaucratic organizations where, kissing butt of the boss is a good way to get up, right? But God does not operate. God is not like that kind of boss. Just like in the parable of the worker's wages, God is the boss. But in the parable of the unjust steward, he's not. And Christ makes that clear, because he says that the children of this world are wiser in their generations than the children of the kingdom. Because in the short space of our life, if you measure good and bad in our generations, in that only time frame, well, the children who operate within that, they are wiser in that time frame than we are. Our wisdom is only shown when it's all over. And it's not only shown, but is particularly and once and for all, and forever established as the truth in the end. In the end of this little, whatever you want to call it, experiment, simulation. I like the idea that they think that the world is a simulation, or that they posit that thought, because, yes, we're just in the mind of God. Being in the mind of God is awfully real, isn't it? That structure of the universe, the zap, the little thing, that's just his synapses firing off, The electrical current of God's brain. We're just lodged up in it. We're not even completely real. Oh. I don't actually believe that, but I don't know. I do not know the particular nature of reality. I don't know. Because everything has to be filtered through what we see, and what we see are all we're allowed to see. There's no peeking behind the curtain for real. It's like, let's see. We just look down, deeper. But what about transitioning dimensions? We're not there. He will surely reprove you if you do secretly accept persons. Is it good that he should search you out? Whereas one man mocketh another, do you mock him? And what is mock really the best way to translate that? Let's see. Oh, come along with me. We accept this person. Will you contend for? Contend there is like to strive or contend, like as at law. You know what I mean? Will you be sort of his defense attorney? That in fact, that's kind of like the thought. Will you be God's defense attorney now? You're defending God? For what? What does he need defense? He doesn't need defense. He's God. He can do whatever he wants. He's smiting me. And it's not because I'm his enemy. God only destroys the wicked. You mock him? Do you tell him what? You can't do that, God. He will surely reprove you if you do secretly accept persons. I also think that's the thing with free will, is to take all God's responsibility away from him. His responsibility for everything, for the creating of the world and for us in it. Because like I say, I don't have free will. Nobody does. You have what would be, I call me will. You're you. You have tastes. You cannot just choose to be me and like the things I like and have the will I have. I wish I could adopt someone else's will. And through the power of God, that may be true. You know what I mean? Where you receive a greater and new spirit. I believe in the power of the Spirit to renew us and change us and all that. Absolutely. Is it good that God should search you out? Oh, wait. Wasn't that a word I wanted to get? Yeah. Well, I wanted to get excellency, but I was also checking something. What, contend and then mock. Hathal. To deceive or mock. Or deride or cheat. Empaizo, to mock or ridicule. I thought mock sounded right in the context. I wonder what the modern interpreters of the NIV say. See, they're like, well, you argued the case for God. So I'm saying, would it turn out well if he examined you? I would say, if I was going to paraphrase it for modern people, cross-examine, just because it would just sound right. Could you deceive him as you might deceive a mortal? They went with deceive. Very different take, right? But again, it's like, here, it's not much different, and I like seeing it like that because it gets me to the essence. By hearing that in a different way, as one man mocketh another, do you still mock him? What is the parallel? Well, it's like, do you treat him like some other dude, like he's like just like you? I mean, like I can pretend to be God. I'll mock, like in the sense of literally mocking or ridiculing by imitating someone. Like, because I usually think of mock in terms of imitation. Like, yeah. It's like, oh, we're gonna do that. Like the mocking. Do you mock him? Do you treat God like he's another man? And that's one of the things I've said for a long time. That one of the problems with evil that people don't understand is they try to put God on the same footing as us. Now, because the thing, I agree with people who want, they can only understand God and evil in terms of why doesn't God do things about it? It's because the presence of evil in the world is intentional. Of course it's intentional. God intended that there should be evil in the world. And so, Paul, how can you say such a thing? Who planted the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Who created that tree? Now, he forbade them to eat it, but the tree was in the world, and the tree bare fruit that was arguably evil. It certainly made you privy to evil and caused you to die. And then God allowed a serpent to be there to tempt them. So, I mean, that's all set up. That's part of the intent. So, my way to understand the Bible and God is to try to then understand reality, how it is, and say, like, well, you know what? We are subject to evil in the world. That's true. But like I said, it's not so strong that we cannot overcome it. And man has, we have marched forward. The world is arguably less barbaric than it was to some degree, or parts of it. But, then it's like, I don't know about that. It seems like with riches and complacency comes like lack of care that results in the deaths of millions of people. I mean, we're marching foolishly towards World War III. Thank God we have a president who's trying to stop that. That doesn't mean it ain't going to happen, though. If these nutty Europeans, thankfully, they don't have much power other than they have nukes, too. So who knows? There are all these little countries with nukes in Europe. Europe has been a nest of war and all this other stuff for a long time. And it's fascinating. And at least, what they're doing is they're proving that it had nothing to do with Christianity, because they're still the same. They're warmongering crazies. Europe never saw a world war they didn't like, okay? They didn't want to get in on. Crazies. And I'm a highly hybridized European, hey. I don't know. I think being stuck on that tiny little continent, and with all the terrain and the challenges, it's just, kind of forged a very warlike people. Having to deal with the Roman Empire and all that, in the South. I guess my ancestors were part of that. Like I said, both, North Europe, South Europe, both. Shall not His Excellency. I wanted to still check that word. What is His Excellency? Sometimes, it's not what you might expect. All right, Excellency. Where is... Oh, Excellency. There we go. Exaltation. I think this goes just fine with... Yeah. Lifting up, elevation, dignity, swelling, exaltation. And it's interesting, it can also mean something like a leprous scab, which is... it's funny the different purposes the words get used for. Sorry. From the root meaning to lift, carry, or bear. So it's something lifted up on your skin when it's that, obviously. It's going to be depending on the context. Prominence, excellency. He is, like some of these uses, the excellency of dignity. That sometimes is the doubling of it. In fact, I should look at, sometimes it's doubled. The excellency, whatever. But anyways, His Highness, His Excellency, the fact that He is high, and that what that symbolizes is being above. He is of a higher order. He's above us in a real sense, not as another man. As man mocketh man, man cannot mock God. And you can try it, but you're not going to do anything. It doesn't accomplish anything. You cannot. God is not mocked. It's like, it just doesn't really work the same. Because you don't even, you need something to work with. So when you really encounter the Almighty, when you encounter that which is high, there's this thing in the book of Ecclesiastes where it talks about getting old, and it says, and when he is terrified of that which is high, which is interesting to me. Like Jesus being put on the pinnacle of the temple. Being in a high place is kind of scary sometimes, especially if you're not accustomed to being high. Every time I go up on a scaffolding, it always terrifies me. Then after about 20 minutes, I'm comfortable again. I'm just getting used to it because I don't do it all the time. It's kind of semi-rare. The first time I went on a roof after about 10 years, I was like, then after about 20 minutes, I'm just walking up and down. You just got, as long as you got good shoes on, nice rubbery bottom, keep them clean, keep dust off the roof, because I do steel, not for a living. But when you're up high, there's a potential for a fall. And God also represents a high thing. I think about when I saw downed power lines, I've used this example, the high voltage. There's a potential there for great, when you see that there was a down power line and the two positives were touching each other, and it was zoom, zoom, zoom. It made this like deep zoom, and this white light zoom. It was burning the grass and eating about. It had eaten up about 6 feet of the wire, just blasting it with that hot, white hot, full, 240 volts getting together. And I remember looking at that and being like, that is dangerous. I didn't want to get anywhere near that. I went over and cut off the power to the property. I was like, that is nuts. And that's what God is too. That is nuts, man. Look, it's God. You're in front of God. When you're in front of God, it's not like being next to Jesus when you encounter the Almighty. Even when you encounter Jesus, because he is the Almighty. I am Alpha and Omega, the Almighty, he says in Revelation. And that's very clearly a reference to God himself. No doubt about that. And a lot of people have doubts about it, but they don't read properly. Because we get vested ideas, we get vested interests. If you're a part of a particular church, well, we deny we believe Jesus was just another, he was Michael the Archangel or something like that. It was just another created thing sent to do this salvation work. He was not God himself experiencing flesh and laying his life down for us, which is more compelling, really. Otherwise, God is just sending someone else to do it for him? Come on. Now, because while they are distinct persons, they have a very shared experience because they are one being. Just like I can't imagine that the suffering of the Son, the Father isn't touched by the suffering of the Son, like very deeply in his like knowledge and like as far as like that experience. But he was never a God that could not be touched with the feeling of our infirmities. I'm telling you, though at times he seems harsh and austere, God is of great love for those who enter into this world and seek to please him. And even not if it's seeking to please him, it's to do what pleases God, even though you do not know him. Because when you do what pleases God without knowing him, he has a way of revealing himself to you. Because generally it means he's already talking to you on a spiritual level. When people love to do what's right and they react that way to the knowledge that God, that comes trickling down through the ether or whatever you want to call it, wherever ideas reside, wherever the mind meets that swirling, experience we go through of words and ideas and places, people, things. When you confront the Almighty, nobody's going to be like, oh, well, I blah, 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 blah. He's not you. We are made in his image, true. And he has made us for the purpose of adopting us. That's why we would go through this life. It is in raising up sons that he subjects us to these things. He subjects us to it in hope. Which means expectation, because he's expecting something. He's going to bring about our glorification, and he's going to adopt us. And that's our word for it. And make us his sons. To them gave he power to become the sons of God. The one who has that power, and also that holds all our lives in his hand, always has. He's kept us all alive. Humanity. He's destroyed it in the past, but also he makes us to thrive. Right? Let's go through it. What are we compared to God? When we are confronted with the Almighty, our remembrances are likened to ashes. What is remembrances? Memorial remembrance. Okay. I wonder if that means literally like tombstone. Your bodies of clay. But whatever, your remembrances, your memory, the things that, like I said, memorial, All the works of man are ashes, ultimately. Some endure for a while, but that doesn't, but even so, like a lot of people still remember, some ancient Roman orators. How many average people remember the wisdom, the important stuff that maybe they had to share? It just becomes this academic thing. Everyday people forget. Bodies are bodies of clay. We're God shaped in a certain way, made in His image as it is written. But we're made of clay. We're made of the earth. We are akin to the beasts of the field. Hold your peace, let me alone, that I may speak, and let come on me what will. He has a very fatalistic attitude as far as the Almighty. In the sense of the Almighty, it is fate. I mean, as far as I can't control God or my relationship with Him per se, like the ultimate outcome of that. But I do know that, from the warnings of Christ, that the foolish thing to do is to be like, well, I better not do anything about it. No, it is what He expects of us is to lay hold of salvation and take the gifts He gives us and make them profitable to Him. And whatever, however that manifests. He says the things that He values. We know what He thinks is worth something. You know what I mean? Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Those treasures come from things like, it says, when you've done to the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me. When we conscientiously go about actually doing good and not just doing stuff in the name of doing good, because that's the problem is I feel like our government tells us it's doing good, but they're not doing good, but we don't know because we're not paying attention and they're secretive about it. Well, I'm glad the secrets are being blown off to some degree. We'll see. It's still all just very much up in the air. Who knows how this is going to turn out? It makes me cautiously optimistic. Like I said, I do feel like in my lifetime the Lord will return, but I don't know for any special fact. I don't have any particular biblical theory of that. That's just my own feeling. That's not a prediction. And if not, this civilization, if not now, I would love it to go on, not just 10 years though, or 20 years, but because I feel like, I'm like, man, we're just staving off an inevitable collapse. Because, like I said, it's kind of like when you had Manasseh, even if some of the later kings repent, it doesn't matter. It's already, the damage is done. And, in that sense. But fatalism is the idea that we shouldn't do anything about anything because it's all because of God's will. If God's will is this, and we shouldn't do it. God's will is a very complicated thing. The last thing you should be thinking about God's will is big picture things like God wants those people on that land and those people off that land. Like, who made you God's realtor? It's not clear to me how that is God's will. But He hath shown thee, O man, what is good and what the Lord doth require of thee, but to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. There are so many things that are clear as crystal. And it's like, if we're not doing those, I'd be highly skeptical of other big ideas we might have as far as what God's will is and what we should assent to. It's like, sometimes it's God's will that we oppose things. Sometimes it's God's will that we make a big stink about things to prevent evil, Like I said, I used to use this example a lot. I haven't used it in several years probably. But when I talk about the love of God, if someone you loved had a gun to their head and was threatening to use it, and you had the power, absolutely, to prevent it, you know what I mean? Like, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, you literally have the power because you're God. Because that's what this analogy is about. If you have the power to prevent them from killing themselves, would you do it if you love them? And of course you would. And that's why I do believe that God's salvation is very effective. It's like He is a competent Savior who, when He saves you, you get saved. You get good and saved. Because it's not just from your faith, it's from His grace, from the foundation of the world, from His will, from His determinate counsel and foreknowledge. All these things come together to save me. I couldn't be saved without God. He's the one who transformed me in the beginning, who revealed Himself to me, so that I'd believe in Him. Flesh and blood hath not revealed this to you, Simon Bar-Jonah, but my Father. It's not just Peter who has this revealed to him. It's really all of us, even when we're not aware. As the Spirit works, the wind blows where it listeth, and you can't see when it comes and where it goes, but it goes where it wants to go. And so is the Spirit. Everyone that's born of the Spirit. You don't see God coming and going. Nobody observes Him if He doesn't want to be observed. Wherefore do I take my flesh in my teeth? It's like, what's that mean? Well, read the next part. And put my life in my hand. Oh, basically the same thing. It's a different take on the same idea. My flesh in my teeth. I'm eating my own flesh. I'm eating my, you know what I'm saying? It's like, that is very unproductive. Like you can't, if you're running a business like that in a metaphorical sense, you're eating your own product. It's like so it's like, once it's all gone, what do you got? Nothing. You can't eat your own flesh and survive. Obviously to some degree you can be overweight and fast for a long time and survive off your own flesh. Right. Not what we're talking about. Though He slay me. And why does He say, I put my life in my hand, I take my flesh in my teeth. I think in the sense that, because his friends are sort of cautioning him and accusing him of saying things that are offensive to God. And he's saying, okay, I get it, but leave me alone. Hold your peace. Let me speak, and whatever, I'll take whatever the consequences are, right? But he says, I think I know God. I've walked with Him a long time, and even through this, God didn't explain Himself or anything, but I understand what He's doing. And so, well, I'll tell you what. I guess when I read it, I think the fact that first I thought like to speak anything that could be conceived as blasphemous maybe or something like that, would be I'm taking my life in my hands here because this is dangerous, right? But also I thought, well, I don't know, my stomach is so loud today. Every time I stop talking, I was like, oh. All right. But though He slay, I love this line, though He slay me, yet will I trust in Him. That's the essence of it. Though He slay me, yet will I trust in Him. That's the Lord Jesus, right down, He was smitten of God, as it says, and again, they say because He was an evildoer. Say, no, the Romans did it, or we did it. No, God did it. You understand, like when He was in Gethsemane. Not that it doesn't all come into play. Yeah, the Romans, the Jews, everyone had a part in it. Everybody got Jesus' blood on their hands, okay? Don't worry about that. We're all guilty. But when Jesus prayed in Gethsemane, He prayed to the one who had the power to prevent it. The one who had said, He says, if there be another way. The way of the cross was the way that God chose. He could have delivered him from that. Just like He could deliver Job. He could say, like I said, just Satan, I'm not going to, no. Look at my servant Job. He'd curse you. No, he wouldn't. I know he wouldn't. Because I'm God. I know everything. But instead he puts Job through this. He said, why would he do that? Because your temporal peace, safety, security is not God's main priority. And that's obvious from reality and from read the Bible sometime. God's top priority is not your comfort in life. Now, I've grown comfortable in life, and thankfully I haven't grown that comfortable. The Lord has seen to it that I don't get very comfortable. I'd like to get comfortable. He won't let me. Because he wants to be strong, not weak. He doesn't want me to become complacent and weak, so he continually tries me. And while that's trying, spiritually, it's like working out all the time. It's like you're spiritually working out all the time and having trials and all that. It's like, do not think it's something strange when there's some sort of fiery trial that comes on you. The trying of your faith worketh patience, and many other good virtues that God finds highly desirable in his servants. And it is evidence that you are his workmanship. It is evidence of your deep, committed faith to him. All right. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. It's important. Every Christian's got to understand that. Because it's like all things work together for good for those that love God. That's, you got to understand, when the devil kills us, it's because God set that up. And I know it because it's already in the Bible. Yeah? It's already in the Bible. So, the Lord is, it's like, how could he tell his prophets that would happen? Wouldn't he stop it from happening? He surely wouldn't allow that because he has the power to do all these things. Now, again, if you had the power, when I use that thing about the gun and all that, I'm just talking about, in our temporal world, with the wisdom of this world. And you say, like, well, he'll be in the next world, right, Paul? Yeah, of course. But suicide in this world is not considered the way you should end this experience. And I know it's rough, and I understand why people do it, but it's not, we don't want to do that. It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I've certainly felt suicidal in my life. I'm not going to be like, oh, I've never felt like that. Well, I mean, if I had never felt like that, I would say that, because it's like, because I would just, then you can understand, like, maybe my lack of understanding. It's hard to empathize with things and sympathize with things you haven't yourself felt. I never felt it strong enough to actually do anything, though. Well, and I've always thought I was incapable, because I've been pretty down and out at times, and while I hated my life, I didn't want to end it. I mean, I wanted to end it, but I didn't imagine that I'd take any steps to do that. You know what I mean? I just sort of, it's like, can I die quietly in my sleep or something? Maybe, Lord, and even then I'm like, I don't really want to die. I want to have a good life. If I'm unhappy with my life, it's because I envy a better life, even if it's not someone in particular. I want things to be better for me. Well, is that what's best for me, though? Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. That's what God expects our relationship. That is the relationship of the perfect man with God. Though he slay me, and I'm a perfect man. I mean that not I am, but I'm just saying, if I speak, because Job is speaking as one whom God regards as perfect. We know that because he said so at the beginning, right? Yet will I trust him, but I will maintain mine own ways before him. What do he means by maintain there? Because I feel like I get it in the sense of I'll keep doing what's right in the sense, but yeah, no, actually, this maintains a bad translation, I think. Maybe in the King James it carried a little more weight. Like yakach. The second one's the. See, there it is, like that. To reprove, to correct, to argue, to decide, to judge, or to be right, reciprocal, to argue, to decide, justify, or convict. Obviously has a few different meanings. But I think here, prove would be the thing. Not maintain my ways, but prove or adjudicate or bring to light, or, you know what I mean? It's not maintain so much as, well, yes, like think about in the English when we say maintain your innocence, right? We say that in a judicial sense. So this is maintain in a judicial sense. I will maintain mine own ways. I will maintain the rightness of my ways. I will maintain that assertion. So say, I'm not going to back down. I'm going to maintain. Okay, so there we go. There's a way to think of that makes a lot of sense with what the word really is. You know, it's putting you into a judgment type framework. And maintain, except in the way I just used it, which it, you know, it actually does get into the legal, like maintain. Do you maintain your innocence? But that's the only way I could put that in that context. But then it all of a sudden, yeah, I'm going to maintain my own ways before him. Do you maintain your own ways before him? Yes. I maintain my own ways before him. I think there's a missing, like, my own ways are acceptable, are righteous, are able to pass this judgment. You know what I mean? Are worthy of maintenance. You know, I'm going to stand by this. That's what it means. Do you stand by your testimony? Do you stand by your ways? I will stand by my own ways before him, because they are before him. They are all before him. All my ways are before you, O Lord, the scriptures say. See, I've gone over, but I have time, and we're going to finish this chapter, even if it takes a little longer. Yeah, it's going to be a 25-minute more study, I guess. Well, let's see. I have exactly 25 minutes, so there we go. Okay, so the writest bitter things against me. Oh, I went way too far ahead. Maybe we won't finish. I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to rush too much, but I'll be willing to take that 25 minutes. Okay, okay, there we are. He shall also be my salvation. And what does he mean by salvation? He doesn't. It's like, it's questionable. Like, I like the way he talks about the resurrection. It's fascinating because you can see on one hand, he's like, people don't come back from the dead. But maybe God will remember me. After all the wrath is past, he'll have a desire to the work of his hands. Because I'm the work of his hands, man. Your hand has made me and fashioned me. Give me understanding. You know, this is the way of men of God from time immemorial. We have sought out God from our youth, many of us. You know, we sought the Lord. We rose up early and looked for him. And he rose up early and sent us. He always does. The prophets show up early. He also shall be my salvation. I think what he's saying is, if I were to come before God in judgment, I'm going to maintain my own ways, and he will be my salvation. He's going to be, and he's the judge. No hypocrite is going to come before him, meaning, and be justified. Because all flesh will stand before him, right? But they're not going to stand. That's the point. They're going to be going down to their knees and begging for mercy, and that's all you can hope for. And I ain't saying there's going to be zero mercy at that throne, because I don't know. You know, I floated that for a long time. But I always maintain that Jesus is the judge. And you look at the way he talked about the way he was going to judge. He was going to be like, hey, you fed me. You gave me drink. Salvation by works? It's like, no, by mercy. Salvation is always a product of God's mercy. But also, he trusts not in his mercy in this, but in his justice. Because he doesn't, in this point, like I said, he's served God so long, and this has happened to him, and he's going to maintain his integrity, and he's just confident if I come before him, he will be my salvation. He will, from whatever could more be done to me, or whatever. I mean, there's not much more to be done. You know what I mean? Like, is he looking forward to the resurrection, to the final judgment? It's hard to say that, but it does feel like it. I mean, certainly I do. when I interpret this for myself, it's like, yeah, he will be my salvation. No matter what I go through, ultimately, I believe in the resurrection of the dead. That is my salvation. The Lord Jesus, he rose from the dead, and I'm through faith in him, I'm going to rise from the dead also. He also didn't like hypocrites very much, by the way. Matthew 23 is just filled with invections against the hypocritical men of his day. Acting fake, playing a role, respecting persons, going to a bad boss and kissing his bottom just to get ahead. Don't think God is particularly wants to be treated like some slimy boss. Make yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, and see if that lands you in a mansion in heaven. See if following the wisdom of this world translates into heavenly riches. It doesn't. Hear diligently my speech and my declaration with your ears. Okay. Behold, now I have ordered my cause. I know that I shall be justified. He trusts he shall be justified because he knows the judge. Not the way I know my neighbor, but that he knows that the judge is just and he knows what his ways are. And, and so on. We've said that. I'm going to repeat it ad infinitum. Who is he that will plead with me? For now, if I hold my tongue, plead usually means contend. Well, I'm contend in a legal sense, and I think plead with me meaning like an argue. In fact, the word I looked up at the quick definition here, it is reeb, which means to strive or contend. It is not so much. Excuse me. It is not so much plead as it is contend. As we think of plead as like, oh, please, please, please. No, it's more like, let's, just like when they say, how do you plead? It's a much more, formal than it is like we think of it in terms of just like crying for mercy. That's not, pleading for mercy is pleading for mercy. Pleading for a man's conviction. It's not the same. We think of the emotion aspect of pleading as opposed to just the fact of like, I'm trying to assert something. So, maybe contend in the modern English would be a better thing. Who will contend with me? In a legal sense. Who will strive with me? Who's gonna, even Satan has nothing to accuse him of. He only accuses God. He says, the only reason Job doesn't curse you and the only reason he serves you is because you protect him. You put a fence about him. Let me do stuff with him and he will curse you. And Satan was wrong. He did accuse him of something that he had that's the thing. It's like his accusation was that if you do this, God, he'll curse you. And Job doesn't. So the accusation is false. It falls flat. But that's what happened. Job, who will plead with you? Satan. And he's going to accuse you falsely. That's what he does. He's going to lie about you. Do you think they told the truth about Jesus? Do you think you're better? They're going to tell the truth about you? Did the world love Jesus? Does it really love him now? They act like they love him. Do you really think they do? Do you think they're going to love you if you truly stand up for what Jesus stood for? If I hold my tongue, I shall give up the ghost. Meaning I'm going to die. That's a metaphor for dying. I was pointing out in the Old Testament and even through the time of Jesus, the ghost, you give up the ghost. I give up the ghost. I don't give up the body. It's not, they have a very different perspective. Because we talk about the dead as the departed. I'm like, what? He's right here. He's in his coffin. He ain't departed. He's right here. It's his life that's gone. The spirit. When the spirit entered man, he became a living soul. Think without the spirit, man is dead. Where's his soul? The soul isn't a where, it's a who. You know what I mean? It's not. I don't think my soul exists somewhere except maybe like as a it exists right here. This is the soul, me. When you grind me up to powder, where's the soul go? Well, God remembers it, but you know, the body that was, all that is gone away, and like Job says, he's not coming back. You know, through faith, I believe otherwise. It's like Job hadn't seen the risen Lord; he'd never seen anybody rise. Okay, neither have we, but we know of the Lord. So, and I've seen. I think I have seen someone rise, and I think when you look at the Shroud of Turin, you're literally looking at the moment of resurrection. So, I do think I have seen a man rise from the dead. Just one frame, though. One frame. That's close enough for me. How many are my iniquities and sins? Wait, withdraw your hand far from me. I mean, your hand of the judgment of the whatever you're doing to me, the actions you're putting. I mean, you know, because your hand right now is oppressing me, and making things hard. You know, again, oppression is relative. It's this feeling of things being hard. You could also, I mean, it's like the same word could be like challenge. Like when I coach wrestling, I challenge the kids to do things, and it makes it harder. But I'm not oppressing them unless you are a complete, you know what I mean? Like, I don't mean, whatever. I don't mean that I'm oppressing anybody. Like when I said accept, I don't mean that. I mean, we are not, you know, the way you get strong is by going up against difficulty. You know, a life of ease never made a great man that I know of, you know. And, you know, yeah, you know, as I think about it, when I, you know, it's only the hardships that made something of me. How many are my iniquities and sins? Make me to know my transgression and my sin. And I think that's sort of an interjection, sort of like, is there something more than I don't understand? Like, could they possibly be right? He thinks they're wrong. And he thinks that his sin cannot amount to what, it can't explain what's happening to him. You know what I mean? Like, his sins and iniquities are, you know, he's not denying he has any iniquities and transgressions. You know what I mean? But, like, how many are they? It's a rhetorical question. It's like, well, not many and not much. Why do you hide your face and hold me for your enemy? You know, like I said, when you have these people who are basically good people, they go to church, they love their neighbor, they donate, you know, and they die. Or they suffer. You know, dying is one thing, right? But they suffer. Because, like, somebody does something. Or a rock falls from off a mountain. I was thinking about, there was a pastor who famously, years ago, went hiking alone. And he was hiking through a boulder field. And he slipped, and a boulder rolled and locked him in. And he died from exposure about 14 days later. About 10 feet away from water, but he just couldn't get to it. Dehydration, exposure. He was just stuck there, right? And he had a journal. He even wrote in a journal, went through all the things with God and got to peace and all that. But the point is, him being a holy man didn't stop just from... The world's a dangerous place. You know, we can have misadventures, and it's not God's fault. You know, you gotta watch where you step. Though ultimately, is he responsible? Is he part? Yeah. But also, it's like, doesn't mean we didn't mess up. Our messing up is built into the program. It's already factored in. God's great plan unfolds, and everything's working together just like it's supposed to. Otherwise, he's not much of a God. You know, again, I like Job's God. He's the God that makes sense with the world as it's experienced. Not a God he never lets bad things happen to basically good people. I mean, And again, like I said, people want to excuse that. They want to blame every evil on man. But God says, I create evil. That's not the same thing as wickedness or sin. Evil, volcanoes, earthquakes, things that destroy homes, mudslides. Sometimes these things are, sometimes these things are true acts of God, so to speak, meaning they're just part of nature that we can't control. Sometimes it's the result of man's ineptitude, like in California recently. Those aren't wildfires caused. Global warming is a long-term thing. Long-term. This year's weather, this year's wildfires have precious little to do with long-term shifts in global temperatures. Like speculating that it does is not science. That's all they do. They speculate. They just, this is the results of Really? It's like the most shoddy thing ever. Someone suggests a warming Earth would cause more fires, and then all of a sudden there's more fires. It's like, well, they said what it would happen. Yeah, there are other people predicting more fires because they don't fill their reservoirs and they don't have enough fire trucks, and they do this whole thing where they want the forest to be all natural, so they never clean it. They let all the broken sticks and brush build up over the years, and of course it's going to burn down. It's just a matter of time. Unless you're very, I don't know. I mean, you don't have to clean the whole forest. You can make fire breaks and do all this stuff, but it's like, if you have natural forest, you're going to have fire. And that's part of nature. Forests do burn down. They burn down less because of our interference. I mean, it's probably a trade-off, because I'm sure we burn forests down, and they burn down on their own, and we plant trees and we cut trees down. And the truth is, the earth has been very greened over the past however long it's been. I better move along, or I'm just not going to get through this. Let not your dread make me afraid. The excellency, the highness of God. The thought that He might allow bad things to happen to us. God's going to let something bad happen to me. I mean, someday I'm going to die. I don't know how. It's probably not going to be a good day. Sometimes it is. Some people have nice, quiet deaths in their sleep or something like that. Fine, if you're really old. I mean, hey, I'm not saying it doesn't happen to some people. That's the point. Is like they rest in their beds. They just lay down and go to sleep one day, and that's kind of peaceful, and God bless them. But it's as a Christian, you got to know also, it's like you might be called to something else. You never know. But anything short of that is probably not a good day. Okay? I mean, it's like that one where you kind of die, you say goodnight to your family and then go to sleep and never wake up. Okay. That's how a lot of people would like to pass away, right? Anything as long as it's sudden. Even then, it's kind of like, I don't want to die in a parking lot. That just seems kind of embarrassing. And then people got to deal with you, Why do you hide your face? Putting your hand on someone for good or for evil. Right now I'll be saying, your hand is on me not to do me blessing, but rather to allow me to be hurt. Because again, Satan acts with authority from God. So, who's ultimately responsible? Who has allowed Satan to do this? The Lord. The one who is protecting you. The one who blessed you with all those things you had that you loved. The one who brought you into the world. Yes. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And for some people, that's unacceptable. Okay. He is a genuine rewarder of those that seek Him. And it's not like He doesn't restore manyfold that which was taken away. Because the things don't feel bad for Job. He is blessed of God in the end, and it is not what it seems to be. And besides, like I said, it's more about the argument than it is about the event. It's like, this really happened. It's like, it really happens all the time, like I said. So how many of them call thou, I will answer, let me speak and answer. I mean, let's talk. That's basically saying, let me approach to you to speak and to, like, I don't want to be subject to the dread of the Almighty. Let me, talk and answer me. How many are my iniquities and sins? And it's also kind of a challenge, I think, because in the sense of like, bring it out, and I'm not afraid. Not just because he thinks it's not sufficient, but because he's also walked with God. He calls himself the work of his hands. I am the work of your hands. Why do you hold me for your enemy? I am your workmanship. Hiding your face, cause your face to shine upon me, O Lord. It's a metaphor for that, blessing, positivity, looking, like at the beginning, he was saying, have you looked at my servant Job? I have been watching him, that. Thou writest bitter things against me. Again, does he actually write anything? No, he's talking about, like, as if, like when a king writes decrees of like arrest this person, put them in jail and all this stuff and all this bad stuff. And it's like you're writing bad things, bitter things against me. Makest me to possess the iniquities of my youth. Like I can't, nothing like the past, because there is an aspect of the faith, even from the Old Testament, where there's a sort of a leave the past behind type idea, where if a man who is, if a man be wicked and turn from his wickedness and his sin that he hath committed, that the Lord would accept him if he turns from those iniquities and serves the Lord and does what's right. And that is acceptable to the Lord, and that you could sort of put your, if you've restored that which you stole and all that, and to the degree to which you can make restitution or recompense for what was done, or whatever. Sometimes we can't pay, right? That's why Christ died, because we can't pay for our sins. But the thing is, you are supposed to try to restore that which was stolen and all that stuff. If you want to go back and try to do reconcile as many things as you can. Certainly, if it's in if you have the ability to reconcile something, like someone's upset with you because you owe them money, and you have the money, you're just not paying them because you don't want to pay. You should pay, right? Why do you hide your face and hold me for your enemy? Wilt thou break a leaf to and fro, driven to and fro? Will you break, a leaf that's, a very weak thing, just like stubble, very flammable, very wind blown, carried about in the wind, just like we're all dust in the wind, right? It's like we are just particles in, moving through the spirit, and we have very little control over what is happening. Other than that, which is really close by, what is right here, I can control me, and I exert some influence over people around me, and that's about it. The world goes on. The Spirit of God moves. Will you pursue the dry stubble? For thou writest bitter things against me, and makest me to possess the iniquities of my youth. You put my feet also in the stocks. The stocks were a place of public humiliation. And he's definitely, his friends are here observing his sorry state. You looked narrowly at all my paths. Very, narrowly means like closely, with like scrutiny. You scrutinized me. And you set us a print upon the heels of my feet. I'm guessing that means something like a mark of a criminal, like who've been put in stocks, and then you brand his foot. That's what like just the picture it draws in my mind immediately is some sort of criminal branding. I'm set as a public example. I am branded as this. Look what God did to this guy. And he says my. I don't think he's talking about God, because I think God is not a rotten thing that consumes. And let's look at the NIV real quick, and then we'll be done here, and I got to get going. I got 2 minutes left. Actually, I have more than that. I have 5 whole minutes, but then that includes the time I got to be driving. So actually, I have 2 minutes, and I got to get out of here. Let's see. NIV, with a modern not translators, that's what interpreters say. So man wastes away like they just inject man instead of he. You fasten my feet in shackles. You keep close watch on all my paths by putting marks on the soles of my feet. It's by. You watch my paths by marking my feet. Interesting thought there. So like it's almost like his feet are like my feet are like a seal. You know what I mean? Like a fingerprint. You do have prints on your feet, right? And actually, he does put marks on the soles of your feet, right? Our feet have feet prints. In fact, when you're a baby, you get your footprint taken. And I think, you know, honestly, I don't, because he's talking metaphorically. I really like this. I like to finish with this. Because I think this is cool. You put my feet in shackles, like I'm bound. I assumed it was stocks, but, you know, whatever. Like the good old, they probably didn't use Puritan forms of punishment. So I probably let my guard down there and I got a little foolish with my interpreting. But like, you keep close watch on all my paths by putting marks in the soles of my feet. That's the way we're made. We're made with unique marks on the soles of our feet. And what he's saying is, you know, all the things I do in life, my feet represent where my feet carry me to do things, good and evil, right? I was, you know, I was a youth once and I went astray, but you put my feet in shackles. And I realize everywhere I go, everything I do, my fingerprints, my footprints are all over it. And so God can see everything I do, everything I go, everywhere I go, because I'm a marked man. He marks me. I don't know if he actually means the prints, but it means like that I am a unique individual that God is seeing. And so wherever I go, whatever I do, that's why it's on the soles of the feet, because the soles of the feet represent what you... I remember, because when I received the Holy Spirit, the power I felt came on my lips, my ears, my hands, and my feet. And they all had meaning to me. And so I knew that the feet represented the way your body is carried to go places and do things. You know, it's feet that are swift to do evil, so to speak. But you know, actually, what it came to was fifth. Your feet would be swift to do good. You know, he marks our feet, and so we become shackled by God's knowledge, by the fact that he has marked us. And I think that's what he's saying. I really like that. You write down bitter things against me and make me to reap the sins of my youth. You fasten my feet in shackles. Write down bitter things against me. Also, now I look at it in the sense of it's part of the next clause, and make me reap the sins of my youth. Because write down, what is write down? What is that symbolic of? Remembering. We write things down to remember them. Like my name is written in his book, as it says, right? He write my sins in a book. You know, write my deeds in a book. You know, the idea that things are recorded in books means they are remembered. In fact, books are one of the primary means of societal memory. That's why the Bible, how do we know what Jesus said? It's because we have this memory brought down through the book. So what it's saying is you keep in remembrance bitter things against me, meaning that like holding on bitterly to things that should long be past. Because he's saying the only thing I could imagine this is about is going way back into my past and holding those things in a outmoded, you know, meaning holding me to be more worthy of greater punishment than I deserve. You know what I mean? Because that's what I say. It's like this I'm being held greatly to account here. You know, marking that's the only way that can even possibly be explained. But that's not even really it. Okay, whatever. I see this back. It's not saying I will not trust in him. But in the last clause, of course, is, you know, That's man does waste away. And so do all his works. So do all the riches of this world. Can't keep them, can't take them with you. You can take certain things with you. You can take your relationship with God and all the riches that you have committed to his trust and to his faith. So, we'll probably, we're going to look a little at that. We're going to keep that verse in mind because I do think actually the chapter break was wrong. I think chapter 13 has one too many verses. Should end at 27, and chapter 14 should have the next verse. Whatever, I could be wrong. You know, there were no chapters in the original Bible anyway. So, actually, chapters 12, 13, and 14 are just one long speech of Job, with there's no chapter break or verses actually in the original. But the verses are very handy for communicating exactly where in this really big book we want to talk about things. And since page numbering is very erratic and not uniform, right, depending on print size and all that, verses make the most sense. All right, that does it for our Bible study today. Thank you for joining me. We're looking forward to being back again. Probably not tomorrow. I hope to make up for that missing Bible study by doing it tomorrow. Yesterday things came up. Not yesterday, the day before yesterday, whatever. Anyways, we'll be back soon with another study in the book of Job. Until then, and things will be leveling off after next week. I should have a very steady... Get back to very steady studies. We're pretty steady now again, at least for 2 weeks anyways, right? Anyways, until then, remember the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, and he is the fulfillment of the law.
But his hand is stretched out still. For wickedness burneth as the fire, it shall devour the briars and thorns, and shall kindle in the thickets of the forest, and they shall mount up like the lifting up of smoke. Through the wrath of the Lord of hosts is the land darkened, and the people shall be as the fuel of the fire. No man shall spare his brother.